Although I like to think that every opening night of a production of organ ballet theaters is an important occasion, and it can be for a variety of reasons, undoubtedly the highlight of this season is the opening night of Giselle. We have a beautiful production coming from Florence, Italy, that we are in the process of making fit our dancers in our theater. We have our complete organ ballet theater orchestra accompanying us for all of the performances, and of course this is a spectacle on a grand scale. We do both the intimate, the classical, the contemporary, the new and innovative, and this is definitely a highlight of our most spectacular productions. As far as an acting challenge for particularly the principal couple, Giselle and her lover Albrecht, who is actually a nobleman in disguise as a peasant, and it is revealed at the end of the first act that he in fact is going to marry his fiancée, the Duchess, and this devastates the young girl, Giselle, who has already a weakened heart, and she goes mad and dies of grief. The original source material for this is, I believe, a German poem or story about young girls who die before they are married, and return as spirits called willies that dance young men to death in vengeance for the happily wedded married life that they never experienced. What's interesting here is that Giselle herself ends up not wanting to commit to the tradition of the willies and spares her lover Albrecht from being danced to death by the band of willies she is a member of. I am very excited that Lola de Avila is working with our dancers. She is particularly expert in and attuned to the qualities that make Giselle a very different full-length ballet than, let's say, Swan Lake or The Sleeping Beauty. It's from an earlier period originally and comes from a different portion of Europe and a different tradition. So the aesthetics of it are, or should be, recognizably different, although in the grand scheme of things, it's a full-length 19th century classical ballet. Of course, it was influenced heavily in the later part of the 19th century by Marius Petipa, the great Russian ballet master that was the creator of Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, and that whole canon. But I really wanted our Giselle to be a cousin of, but a distant cousin of those works, and for us to really see that its origins were French and of a different time and place and aesthetic. And Lola is very committed to making things round and soft and not too bravura or virtuoso, meaning
when Christopher asked me to do this in Portland, I was delighted because it's one of my favorite pieces. Giselle is all about eternal things: love, betrayed, passion, and eternity. And that's what we, over the times, we always go through.
The whole idea behind the Romantic movement is ethereal, otherworldly, and in fact it instituted the idea, or began the tradition of women dancing on their toes just to create that lighter-than-air feeling.
The port de bras is a very important part of the classical ballet. Is the movement of the arms then creates the emotion, and the rhythm is the phrasing of the music, the port de bras. And in the classical ballet, and especially in Giselle, is very important because it's very precise. It has to be very smooth. In some parts, the arms, they should look like the veils, and that creates the illusion that they are moving very slowly and effortless, even though it's not. And elbow and down, and elbow, if you want a little bigger towards to the end, is not a soft, beautiful coming out. It's from under the ground. It's someone that is up, yes, up, yes.
Much of what is compelling about the ballet Giselle is that it is the story of real human beings. Unlike other fairy tale ballets, this is not princesses or swans, and it also unfolds in real time, which is something that Lola de Avila and I have discussed, that we want it to be very clear that these are real human emotions and that the arc that the characters are going through happens within the space of 36 hours, which again is unlike a fairy tale.
At the time that that choreography was made, the pantomime was very separate from the steps, and the meanings were in the pantomime. And the way we dance these days, our dancers do now, is they are more expressive with their steps. And what I really like is the idea of making blend the pantomime and the steps, they have their meaning helping the pantomime. And I think that it's not that easy and it's very beautiful to do.
One of the cornerstones of the work is the famous mad scene, which in the dance world we sort of equate Giselle for a ballerina with Hamlet in the Shakespearean canon. And it's rare for a dancer to have an extended passage of music in which, in this case, she does not dance very much, but needs to keep the audience and everyone on stage completely enthralled in what is happening to her psyche. It's very much, again, an aesthetic from the Romantic era. It happens in operas frequently, but there's only one ballet in which there is a genuine mad scene for a ballerina. And it's something that needs to be, although it's not technically or physically challenging, it is very, very challenging from an emotional and dramatic standpoint. As a piece of art, Giselle is really on a sort of Shakespearean scale in that it offers the leading dancers incredibly detailed and rich characters to portray, both as actors and as dancers, because of course the two things have to be intertwined and related to one another, but also a wealth, it can be interpreted a wealth of different ways, which is why it's been around for over 150 years now, but it is actually something of a mutt of a ballet in that it started in its original production was in Paris in the 1840s, and its aesthetic was very popular. Probably the longest lasting performance art piece of the Romantic era, but it traveled to Russia and was sort of revamped and revitalized by the Russian technique, ballet technique of the time, which I think probably is the reason it's lasted so long. But again, it's interesting because it's a hybrid. It's of this very, very romantic particular period and aesthetic of the middle of the 19th century, but buoyed and lifted up to even greater heights by the great classical techniques and aesthetics of later 19th century Russia.